They didn't have not long. No.
I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't expecting the Aussie.
Test 1, 2.
On the way out, they basically said that they were impressed with how sophisticated you were with what you were asking. Because they did not expect that.
I guess sometimes people come to smoke homes and don't expect. Have you ever had a fire?
Mrs. Rip, these are ready to go, aren't they? These are good.
Well, they're for tonight.
Oh, they're for, oh.
Action tonight.
Oh, okay. I'll hold off. I was going to start signing them. I'll wait. Hi, Paula. How are you? Good to see you. Welcome. Good. Oh, it's me. Nothing, I'm just taking a couple minutes. No. Okay. All right. Is Frank, Mary, is Frank here tonight? Frank? Mosquito?
I don't think so.
Oh, it's not on here. That's just an FYI.
It's just an announcement.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Reset. All right. It's 7 p.m. If I can get everyone to please silence your cell phones. I don't see any hats on this evening. And stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mrs. Ripp, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Graham?
Here.
Councilmember Round?
Here.
Councilmember Plaza?
Here.
Councilmember Chapman?
Here.
Councilmember Humbert?
Here.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Here.
And Councilmember Jacobs did call in excused.
Yes. Chair will accept a motion to
excuse.
Second. Moved by Councilmember Humbert, second by Councilmember Chapman. Will clerk please take the vote?
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza?
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert?
Aye.
All right. Mr. Jacobs has been excused this evening. At this time, I'm going to call Chief Kelly up. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Oh. Am I going first or are you going first?
Would you like to go first? I'm going to save you for last.
Okay, sounds good. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to put on my old man glasses.
All right, sounds good. So tonight we have a whole bunch of recognition for the police department, and I appreciate everybody being here. First, I would like to recognize our members
that have served in the military. So could I have Sergeant Lipp, Officer Swenningson, Officer Gibbs, and Officer Pedora step forward, please. You guys just want to hang right here. Before serving the citizens of the city of Woodland, these officers began their careers in public service by enlisting in our country's armed services. These officers have protected us against enemies foreign and domestic and continue to do so as police officers for the city of Woodland. They sacrifice their time with family to protect us daily. For that, these officers can proudly display their pride in service by placing these ribbons on their uniform. Sergeant Lipp, veteran of the United States Air Force. Thanks, Sergeant. Sir. Officer Gibbs, U.S. Army. Thank you. Officer Swenningson, United States Marine Corps. Hoorah. Semper Fi. Officer Pedora, United States Army. Thank you. That's it. Thanks, gentlemen. Now, although we recognize these officers for their service, I cannot leave out other outstanding officers and recognize them for continuing to provide the excellent public service to the city of Woodland. We continue to do more with less. All of the members of the Woodland Police Department are determined to provide a safe community for the citizens of Woodland. And thanks you guys for being here in support of your department. Thank you. In further recognition, I would like to ask Carla to come forward. See if I can find all my notes here. This department commendation is in recognition of the outstanding service to the City of Woodland and the Woodland Police Department. Recently, you facilitated a 12th technical security audit conducted by the Washington State Patrol Access Section to ensure the police department is operating within state and federal guidelines. Because of your daily attention to detail, sound business practices, professional conduct, our department received a passing score. This passing score is a direct reflection of the pride and passion you possess to provide quality, progressive law enforcement services to the citizens of the City of Woodland. As a department senior clerk, you have taken it upon yourself to provide professional services each day. Your can-do attitude and your pride for service maintains the image of our department and the expectations of what the Woodland Police Department represents. Thank you. Carla actually gets our first Chiefs coin. Thanks, Carla. Thank you. And I should note that Sergeant Jim Keller designed those coins that were given out today. Donnie, your turn. This department commendation is a recognition of your commitment to the City of Woodland and Cowlitz County. Throughout the year, your passion for our community is evident by the programs you're continually involved in, the biggest of which is our Shop with a Cop program. Bravo. Throughout the year, you're an active, intricate part of several city and county programs. Your selfless conduct makes each one of these programs a success. Donnie handles our Shop with a Cop program and is the point person responsible for all the logistics involved in the program. She's also heavily involved in the city's Borrow a Life Jacket program at the swimming areas of our community. Donnie is a car seat technician and throughout the year participates in countywide child safety seat clinics held in multiple cities in Cowlitz County. Because of Donnie's active role in each one of these programs, they are extremely successful. Donnie's passion for each of these programs and the youth of our community is a direct reflection of her character. Thank you, Donnie. Okay, this one's a big one. Sergeant Lipp. This award is in recognition of exceptional service provided by Sergeant Rob Lipp to the City of Woodland and the Woodland Police Department. During the period of December 2016 through November of 2017, Sergeant Lipp demonstrated exceptional performance of his duties as a first-line supervisor, performing the duties as acting police chief on numerous occasions. During this time, Sergeant Lipp assisted in an interim police chief and a new police chief transition to their new roles within the City of Woodland while maintaining his commitment to the officers of the City of Woodland as a first-line supervisor. Sergeant Lipp took additional duties when the department and other patrol sergeant retired. Not once did Sergeant Lipp neglect his duties to the City of Woodland. Sergeant Lipp maintained his can-do attitude and professionalism while continuing his uncompromising commitment to the City of Woodland. Sergeant Lipp has provided sound leadership to the members of the Woodland Police Department for 10 years, always keeping in mind outcomes that benefit the members of the department. Sergeant Lipp takes personal pride in representing the Woodland Police Department. He continually shows exemplary initiative and exceptional problem solving. Because of Sergeant Lipp's demonstration of exceptional performance and leadership, exemplifying professionalism of the Woodland Police Department, he is awarded the Medal of Meritorious Service. Show everybody what you got. Let everybody see that. Let everybody see that. That's it? Yeah, we're going to take a time out.
Can you guys get together for a picture?
Going to take my old man glasses off?
Sure.
Okay.
You still won't anyway.
How about show you?
Show them the hardware. Don't throw it on the floor.
That's the point.
Yeah, I'm going to step out here for just a second. And then, Mr. Mayor?
You want me to go now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Listen, Chief.
You want me to read all this here?
Yeah, if you want.
Okay, I think I would like to. What's this one right here? Is this something different?
That's his award
Okay.
as well.
Do you want that?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Let's call them up for the other part and then make them stand and look
Okay,
silly.
sounds good.
Hey, Will.
Okay, perfect. All right. Come on, step forward now. Don't be shy. I'm very excited to be here this evening and be administering this oath to, I don't know, I want to call you Sergeant Keller right now because you have the stripes on, but we haven't done the oath yet, but I know you already have. So Sergeant Keller is here this evening because I was here for the first one. So I'm very excited that everyone was able to come out this evening. It shows a tremendous support to our community to see how many people can come out and love our police department as much as the rest of us do. So it means a lot. It means a lot to council. It means a lot to me that so many family members and those that just support the police department have come out today to witness all of this. It's fantastic. Without you, we wouldn't have a safe community. So we appreciate you, and we appreciate all the hard work that you do every single day. This one first. All right. You can stand here all uncomfortable. It's good stuff. All right. Jim was born in Seattle, Washington, and grew up in Federal Way, Washington, where he graduated from Federal Way High School in 1991. In 1995, Jim attended Pacific Lutheran University and graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in pre-law. In 1995, Jim was hired by the Pierce County Sheriff's Office as a corrections officer and worked with Pierce County until 1997. In October of 1997, Jim graduated from the CJTC. Jim was hired by the King County Sheriff's Office as a deputy and worked with the Sheriff's Office until 1998. In 1999, Jim was hired by the Federal Way Police Department and worked as a patrol officer. As a patrol officer, some of his duties included motor officer, traffic school instructor, and Jim was also a member of the accident investigation team as a collision reconstructionist until 2004. In 2005, Jim was hired by the Woodland Police Department, and during this time, He has obtained certifications as a radar LiDAR instructor, as well as an advanced field training officer. Jim is also our PBT technician. On January 1st, 2018, Jim was promoted to the rank of Patrol Sergeant for the Woodland Police Department. It was a beautiful day. Jim would like to thank his parents, James and Patricia, for their support and guidance through the years and for being here on this important day. He would also like to thank his son, Logan, and most importantly, his wife of 14 years, Sarah, who has supported him throughout his law enforcement career. All right.
One thing I'd like everybody to know is Jim is assuming the duties of one of the most important jobs in any police department as a first-line supervisor. So if those are the people that really run our department, other than the two ladies that keep me out of trouble on a daily basis. So his shoulders better be nice and big. And the rest of
us. All right. I'm going to have you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, James Keller.
I, James Keller.
Do solemnly swear and affirm.
Do solemnly swear and affirm.
That I will support the Constitution.
That I will support the Constitution.
And the laws of the United States.
And the laws of the United States.
The Constitution and laws of the state.
The Constitution and laws of the state.
Of Washington.
Of Washington.
And the laws of the city of Woodland.
And the laws of the city of Woodland.
And that I will faithfully.
And that I will faithfully.
And impartially.
And impartially.
Perform and discharge.
Perform and discharge.
The duties of the office.
The duties of the office.
Of Police Sergeant for the City of Woodland.
Of Police Sergeant for the City of Woodland.
According to law.
According to law.
To the best of my ability.
To the best of my ability.
Congratulations. This is a certificate of promotion. By the power vested in me and in recognition of your trust, loyalty, and professional service to the Woodland Police Department and to the citizens of the City of Woodland, I hereby promote James Keller to the rank of Sergeant.
Don't draw any blood.
Fantastic. I'll just set this right here. We can give it to you. This one. Okay. Oh, and you're not done yet. You just keep standing there. All right. On October 18th, 2017, Officer Keller responded to a call for assistance from officers of the Kalama Police Department and Cowlitz County Sheriff's Office. Officer Keller received a call from Cowlitz County Communications informing him of a medical call involving a life-threatening situation. Details of the call were not clear as there was a language barrier. Officer Keller proceeded to a residence on North 2nd Street in the city of Kalama and found Sheriff's Deputy Taylor performing CPR on a male lying on the floor. By this time, officers from Kalama Police Department had arrived at the scene, and needless to say, the scene was somewhat chaotic. Officer Keller observed Taylor becoming fatigued from continuous CPR and relieved him of chest compressions. With the assistance of a Cowlitz County Fire District 5 volunteer, Officer Keller continued performing CPR for about 15 minutes when aid personnel were able to get a pulse from the patient. The patient was stabilized and transported from the scene by ambulance to St. John Medical Center in Longview. Shortly following this incident, Chief Kelly received a message from Kalama Police Chief Ralph Herrera informing him of Keller's heroic actions and teamwork. Officer Keller and other officers took quick control of a chaotic scene and followed their training, providing critical aid to someone in distress, and for this he is to be commended for his actions. Although the patient passed away a few days later, the actions of Officer Keller and others provided the family an opportunity to spend much-needed time with a loved one. Is that this one right here?
Yep.
Police Department commendation presented to Jim Keller in recognition of your commitment to the mission, vision, and values of the Woodland Police Department. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. All right. Oh, here's one more for you. Yeah, now you can sit down.
Now on with the show.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it? All right. Thank you again, everybody, for coming out and participating this evening. We're going to continue on with our council meeting, but we'll take a short 5-minute break. Is that good? I don't know what the time is though here.
7:16.
7:16, so we'll take 5 minutes. Thank you. All right, we are back in session. And right now, we're going to go into another presentation with, let me see, if I saw them in the back. I saw one in the back. Is there only one tonight?
Jeanette wasn't not able to.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so let's see if I can get this right. Anindita. Yeah, nailed it. Mitra. All right, with the Downtown Facade Program, which was part of the CURB grant project that we have in downtown. So I gotta look at it before I can say it. Anindita is going to be giving us a presentation this evening on what transpired and where we are.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So I have a brief overview of the work we've been doing with city staff and the Downtown Revitalization Committee for, it's been over 6 months now. Oh yeah, should I turn it?
However you want. Yeah. Sorry.
Maybe I can do it at an angle. There. So we started work around June, and we're at the concluding phase of this project. So what I want to do today, with the half an hour that I have...
Thank you.
Oh, really?
There we go.
Oh, it's interesting how it's lost its formatting, but that's okay. So I'm going to outline what the CURB grant was initially and how staff applied for it, the schedule that we worked to advance the idea for a facade improvement program and get feedback from the community, the work that we did in showing the community how some of the facades once improved, what a difference it would make. And then we worked with staff and city manager to develop the program of a facade improvement program. So the application form and the details that you would have to consider should the city decide to pursue with its own facade improvement program. So 6 items, half an hour. That's our goal. So this project was heavily geared towards working with the public, making sure every comment that we heard was addressed. It started with some one-on-one key interviews with stakeholders in the community and really understanding what some of the concerns were in terms of the previous work that was done for downtown and what they would like to see moving forward. We also attended, I believe, 4 DWR meetings where we met with the DWR committee and worked with them to see what their desire was for this project. Working with them, we organized a community open house, and thanks to the interest and all the enthusiasm that the store owners and business owners showed, they organized a festive walkthrough of the district, which was very successful, and I'll just go over that in a little bit later. We generated ideas for how this district could look and what are some of the key considerations. We reviewed municipal standards and then we developed the administrative procedures. These were the requirements for the grant, and we've completed all these tasks. So what we delivered through this program was an understanding of building preferences. What did community members and property owners want the district to look like? Apparently there was an idea in the past that it would look like a certain part of the world, but what we heard is that they really want to capture the Woodland identity, and the words that were used was they wanted to be authentic to Woodland, and to show a variety of architecture and site treatments. But what they did want to make sure is that whatever is developed actually aligns with what is there. So it was a very interesting, almost, it wasn't contradictory. I would say both the comments align with each other. And how did we figure out what that looked like is we did a visual preference study at the first community workshop here in this room. We had samples of other downtown street frontage, and we had people share what they liked and what they didn't like. So we really got a sense of what the community wanted to do within the downtown area. Developing the program, we again asked for some cursory community feedback in terms of would they be interested in a facade improvement program that would help property owners in downtown Woodland fix up their property, and there was a lot of interest in that. And then we went forward and tried to understand what were some of the desirable features they would like to see in the downtown area. And some of this feedback informed how the grant is structured. We tested some of the improvement standards in terms of, or while we were illustrating how the facades could be improved. And then we worked with staff to work through the application process and the form and some of the details. And I believe Mayor also had some input into that.
There's some lag time.
So this is how the schedule panned out. We started work with the DWR meeting in July. The blue represent the DWR meetings, and the green triangles represent the community feedback. We had one meeting in August, and then the walkthrough of downtown was held in October. And here we are in January with our council presentation. So we made to make sure that we really got a sense of what community members and business owners wanted. We had a frequently asked question, and then Jeanette was working with the DWR to make sure that all the feedback and all the meetings were being recorded and distributed in the flyers that she developed for DWR. I think her mailing list was about 180 businesses, and I don't know, and some more individuals. So she maintained a very rigorous protocol for summarizing the input we received and sharing it with the businesses in the downtown area. We looked at samples of facade improvement programs from elsewhere. We tried to find scales and, districts that were similar to Woodland. So we looked at Lethbridge, Canada, and Hamilton, New York. And again, we sought feedback from these other improvements in terms of whether the community liked it, and if not, which direction would they want to go. Some of the broad suggestions that were offered at the first community meeting and following conversations is that just a simple and inexpensive treatments like adding flowering plants in the downtown area would be a welcome addition. But they also wanted to figure out how we can celebrate the unique character of each building, and an interesting idea that was put forward was to look at the downtown area at night and see if we can encourage business owners to make their building look attractive at night. So to look at night lighting features, maybe encourage businesses that have a strong roof to set up rooftop gardens, and I've seen those rooftop gardens transform districts in other parts of the country. So that was a brilliant idea. We worked a lot with staff and the DWR to figure out what this downtown area should be. So it was first small, then it got very wide, and then I think where we landed is what's on the last page of your packet. But it's not very clear, but it might be more clear in your packet in terms of the proposed district limits. So we had the first meeting here on August 8th. There were more than 28 residents. It was really well attended. There were business and property owners, and some of the Some of the ideas that were put forward were as simple as paying for power washing the building facade, looking at architectural lights to create more character at night, fresh paint on building trim and window trim, really looking at your sign ordinance. A lot of the signs were oriented towards the street, so it's easier to see them when you're driving by. There was a lot of interest in awnings, and we played a lot with that in some of our sample facades. And again, the potted plants were very popular. Some of the more expensive ideas that were suggested at this meeting is maybe encourage some of the buildings to open up more, create larger windows, to create the rooftop gardens and bars, and to look at more resilient building materials over wood and stucco, such as stone or galvanized metal. So those are some of the ideas we got from the community members. In the second community meeting, which was, I would say, almost entirely managed by your business community, we got really positive feedback about the walk, and how many community members came up to me and said, we didn't know we had such a cute downtown. I didn't know half of these businesses existed, and will you do it again next year? So there was a lot of excitement that was generated. I think it was a really well planned event. Some recommendations for next year is maybe we do it before the rainy season hits, and maybe look at inviting local talent to set up music or some other events on the street to really bring the street alive, and advertising it more. Some people saw or learned of the event by accident, and one of the suggestions I've heard from a couple of people was to advertise on Pam and Terry's business advertisement that they have in many restaurants. After looking at your municipal code, we felt that the C1 zone that covers the downtown area creates a lot of conflict between what the C1 zone requires property owners to do and what the property owners want to do, and what's in the vision for the downtown revitalization group of creating a really rich pedestrian environment. So we wanted to float the idea of maybe creating a C1 HD zone, or just a HD zone that creates very simple zoning for the historic area that speaks to the properties that are there and the parking standards that can be reasonably accommodated, and some of the other characteristics. So that idea was well received. So we played with so at that second committee meeting, we did a little vote of nominating 2 businesses that we would work with to show a sample facade improvement. And one of the buildings that was selected was Pat Reichel's building. So we showed how improving the facade can improve its appearance, and it can happen in 3 really drastic ways. So we did have a poll, but because it was rainy and windy, I think we lost a lot of the dots. So we don't have a favorite, and ultimately it'll be up to Pat in terms of what he selects. But he was excited, and he is really charged up to do something this summer. And the other building we had fun with was the True Value building. We worked a lot with Mike, and he just kept pushing for more. So we just started giving him a variety of ideas. I think his last comment was like, maybe less is more. I'm like, okay. So I don't know where they've landed, but he really liked the various ideas. He mentioned that we gave him food for thought in terms of how this building can be renovated and prepped up a little bit. So we looked at facade improvement programs from a variety of towns. There's a couple we found in Washington State. I think we glanced at the one for Auburn, and then there's one for Renton. I'm sure there's others, but those are the ones we came across. But the ones that we really liked because they offered different perspectives was one from Knoxville, Elburn, Waukesha, and Cedar Falls. And we found that each of the programs varied in terms of the amount, in terms of the approach, whether it was a grant or a low-interest loan, what the application process was, whether it would be, approved by the Public Works Director or the Planning Director. I mean, so it really varied. So we actually looked over the various ones that were there, and what you have in front of you is a summary of what we thought would be a good fit for Woodland. So the program is, and we can arrange this in any order, but what you have in your packet is one sheet that, or a couple of sheets that describes the program details. About the program, who's eligible, what are the terms of the grant, what kind of projects would be funded through the process, the application process, who would review the proposals, and how would the funds be dispersed. Then we have an application form that's a one-page form with another table. And that's where you gather all the business details about who they are, do they own the building, are they renting, do they have permission from the owner to do this, and what are they thinking of doing, what are the costs. So this is basically a cheat sheet for staff to get project summary. Then there's a statement of understanding certificate. I found this very interesting. I think, only one city that did it, but I really liked it. But it basically summarizes the whole program, and at the bottom it says, do you understand what you're getting into? So you actually sign and say, yes, I do, before moving forward. So I really like that. And then there's a very simple checklist of what any business owner would need to give staff. And then goes into the program details itself, which is goes into what is a facade. Again, more details of the initial summary sheet about the program. And it goes into, I'll read it off for the audience. What is a facade? Who's eligible? Purpose of the program, criteria, materials, appropriateness, getting quotes for the job. We've requested at least two quotes. What does the funding look like? And we put in a request that the owners or the business owners, property or business owners, have a little stake in this grant. How will the approval look like? What's the process? Post-approval, what will the owner need to do to get the reimbursement? And if you're denied, how they can, to encourage them to reapply next year with the sounder and more rigorous proposal. And we also left the caveat that the program itself can be reviewed by the council however frequently you need to make sure it represents the funds you receive and any other changes that you'd like to make to the program. And last is the grant agreement. And this talks about, this basically is a standard agreement and contract that basically explains who's responsible for managing the grant, and if the owner exceeds the grant amount, that it's not the city's liability to cover that. They have to cover that. They have to maintain the work so that it's, so that it continues to be, to improve the downtown area. And this is a map, and the end is a map of the current or the proposed district limits that we show. So for grants, we looked at a lot. I've worked all over the country, so it came as a surprise to me that a lot of the other tools that some of these other areas use, which is the most common, is the Business Improvement District. Right now, our legislation is kind of vague, and you can't really use it to improve private properties. So I think most other towns use the business improvement district where all the businesses pool some money every year and then you figure out where or who will receive that money. And sometimes it's a grant, sometimes it's a low interest loan. We can't do that here in Washington State. But a lot of cities have been using the CDBG funds, and I looked at all the details for this category, the general purpose grants, and it seems like a perfect fit for this project. It's available annually. It's targeting small cities and towns. It's to benefit low and moderate income persons. And examples of eligible activities include economic development, which is the primary focus of this program, and also micro-enterprise assistance. So this program would fit beautifully within the grant criteria. There is a training coming up in March if staff or council want to attend to understand more about this grant program. The Woodland falls within all the eligibility guidelines, which is towns less than 50,000, special purpose districts or economic development councils. Projects must principally benefit low and moderate income persons, and local governments may only submit one application each year. So it's pretty straightforward. So going back to the topic of the zone, so some of the feedback we got, and it makes a lot of sense to us, is, you know, to see if we can carve out from the C1 district, the downtown area, and create zoning standards and maybe a one-page design standards that speaks to the community needs to make sure the design doesn't disrupt the downtown character and enhances it, and to make sure that the setback, height limits, parking standards, all the other standards that make sense in the rest of the C1 district are adjusted so that it works for the downtown area. So we've recommended that the council conduct a study and see the worthiness of doing a new zone. I think that will help propel a lot of business owners to kind of come in and make that investment. Because if you look at the standards now and you see what's required of parking and so on and so forth, no investor is going to say, I'm going to come in and provide, you know, parking, this much parking, when the property size itself is so small. For the standards, some of the things we've heard is to make sure the building proportions are similar. The material and color are generally similar to what's there, to emphasize signage and lighting, and to allow for rooftop restaurants. And what our firm has done, because we work with many, many small towns across the country and the state, is we've been simplifying the zoning language and the standards. And our latest iteration of it, which Montesano just adopted, because I don't know if you all remember in our first meeting, I mentioned that we did one for Montesano and it got nixed politically. And I said, you just have to wait it out. And sure enough, the political climate changed and they adopted it after 5 years. So it's just one page for every sub-district. It's a quick checklist. It's measurable, so there's no, you know, confusion in terms of, is this building design meeting the standards or not. So we're very proud. We're looking for more opportunities to do this because we feel it'll help small towns and open up staff time to be more productive. So thank you.
All right. Questions? Councilmember Rounds.
How is this going to benefit low income?
Well, I'm not sure it's going to necessarily benefit low income, but I think the city can make an argument that a lot of the businesses that are there are distressed, so that would fall under the low income category.
Mr. Fredericks.
So we're already utilizing the CDBG grant process. What steps would you need to take to add something like the facade improvement into that request?
You want me to answer that?
Sure.
So there's different categories in those funds, and this is a totally different category that we use for our streets and ramps and sidewalks.
Okay.
So they have 4 or 5 different categories that you can apply for within that fund.
And refresh my memory on what didn't we just recently go through this process?
Yes, we have applied for it, and we're due to do a presentation for them in February, and we applied for grant money for sidewalks and ADA ramps within the city.
And this specific does not fall into that category. This is a
Correct.
separate category.
That's
Okay.
correct. Separate funding for it.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a quick addition to that. There's also several ways to creatively work around the granting programs. In Othello, we went and got planning-only grants, and there's limitations on using subcontractors. So what we did is we used city staff time and reimbursed that through the grant, which freed up general funds that were now available for other uses that wouldn't have been available otherwise because we were working off of grant funds. So it allows you to switch money that might otherwise be earmarked for something else into a program that you want that supported that grant program.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for coming out this evening. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. All right. Excuse me. Moving on to the next portion of the agenda. Citizen communication for items not on the agenda. I have no one signed up, but if you failed to do so at the beginning of the meeting, now's your opportunity to step forward. All right, moving on to items on the agenda. Some of my favorite people are here this evening who have signed in. I'm going to call forward Mrs. Monica Ream. Haven't seen you in a while. Why? Did you have a nice holiday?
I did.
Good.
And you?
I did, yes, thank you very much.
My name's Monica Ream. I'm at 327 Hillshire Drive. I would just, first of all, like to welcome the new members. I haven't been here since you've been on. And to wish you all a Happy New Year. I'm not here to be mean today.
You never are.
I can be feisty. So I'm just here to encourage the board. I know it's getting close to the 6 months on the moratorium for the marijuana grow-ops. And we would like to encourage you at this time to please extend this until further information can be gathered and collected. I know that the laws, because it is legal in the state of Washington, it gets a bit tricky. But we have had the personal experience of having a medical marijuana grow-op in our neighborhood. It turned out, I think, pretty much that it was also a income earner for the people. We had a lot of heavy traffic that were like 10-minute company that blatantly towards the end would walk out holding bags of marijuana in their hand as they walked to their car. We live in a family-friendly neighborhood. We would really like to keep it that way, and we encourage you to extend this so that we can come to some kind of decision that we can all live with in our community and just make it a safer and more family-friendly area. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
It's amazing, isn't it?
That was easy tonight. I wouldn't call you feisty, just energetic.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And could you have either the microphone positioned better or the people in the back are having a difficult time?
Oh,
hearing
okay. Yes,
comments
absolutely.
being made?
We'll have Mrs. Ann Wolf. We'll have her pull that down for us. Hello. Can I get you to pull the microphone just a little bit closer? There we go. Let's try that.
Hello?
Is it?
Okay, is it working?
Is that better?
Hello?
Why don't you just start talking?
Okay, yeah, okay. Hi, my name's Ann Wolf, and I live at 312 Hillshire Drive in Woodland. And I'm just going to cut to the, welcome new members. It's nice to see new faces. I'm just going to cut to the chase here. I am against medical marijuana or recreational marijuana in anywhere near residential areas. Last year, I was the one who experienced firsthand living next door to a medical marijuana grow, and I had to deal with an industrial fan going 24/7 and an obnoxious smell during harvest time that was so bad that I couldn't even sit on my front porch. And then, as Monica said, strangers coming in and out of the house, you know, and on a street with a lot of kids, and I just felt unsafe. So I would ask you to please, if there's any way, ban this from residential areas, and if not, please just extend the moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I have no one else signed up. If you would like to speak, now's your opportunity to step forward for items on the agenda this evening. All right. Moving on, Chair will accept a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Humberg, second by Councilmember Chapman. Will the clerk please take the vote?
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember Humberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Can I ask a question, please?
No.
Is this my time to have, no, okay.
You're good.
Okay.
We're just approving what's on here this evening. I know what you're going for, not
Oh,
check.
okay, all right, thank you.
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza?
Aye.
All right, agenda's been approved. Moving on to reports of city officers. I'll start. Next week we'll be up in Olympia on January 24th and 25th for City Action Days. We also will be bringing forward, and I don't know how to say his last name, Frank. Oh. that's
Chino or something like that. Sorry, I don't know.
Helped us out gathering signatures for the Cowlitz County Mosquito District. The city has to place a representative or an appointment to the board, which meets 4 times a year, 3 times a year? 4 times a year, and Frank, we reached out to him, Mrs. Rip reached out to him, and he said, absolutely, I'll be more than happy. So it doesn't have to be an elected official, so we are sending a citizen from Woodland to attend those meetings, which start in April.
So we are waiting for his application, and the appointment will follow the February one.
Perfect. Let's see, what else I got? Legislative priorities are on here. Mr. Boyce has tweaked a little bit of the language, which I believe, let me make sure here, it's going to be action item L this evening for us to take to Olympia with us. And State of the City on February 3rd. So at this time, but it will not be here. So, more to come on that, hopefully next. Questions for me? Yes, go ahead.
On Move, we'll be presenting a Move It Saturday. So on the third Saturday is communities, and this time under the overpass and over to the lake, and have breakfast,
8 a.m.
8 a.m.
Saturday the 10th of February, retreat here in Council Chambers, another. For those of you that are interested, please hit me up. I would love to sell you. All right, Mr. Boyce.
Okay, February 10th, we'll have the council retreat.
Oh, I stole that from you, sorry.
Well, there's more to it.
Okay,
It's
go.
So if councilors have ideas about agenda items, please let me know. I know it says by today, but if you could let me know within about a week time frame, that would help. January 17th, tomorrow, we're doing our audit exit. It starts at 3 p.m. at City Hall. So the auditors will be there and talk Then notification of a liquor license renewal at Los Pepes, 611 Gorig Street. We have some upcoming community events. The 20th is the Woodland Chamber of Commerce installation banquet. It's at Heathman Lodge. February 24th, the Father-Daughter Ball, 3 to 5 p.m. and 7 to 9 p.m., hosted by Grace Community Church at Woodland High School. And we also got notice that the WQCC is going to meet February 7th at 6 p.m. And we don't have a location yet, but as soon as we have that, we'll get it out to City Council. Then I also wanted to, unfortunately he's not here this evening, is to acknowledge Bill Ealing for the service he provided to the city as city attorney for a number of years. Unfortunately, he has an emergency situation he's dealing with this evening and expressed regret that he couldn't be here this evening. So anyway, just wanted to acknowledge Bill and his service to the city. Of course, it's contingent upon the action item we have on the agenda regarding a contract with Frank Randolph for city attorney services. But yeah, just wanted to acknowledge Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Boyce. Also, I do want to acknowledge your attendance at the business chamber today during lunchtime. I've already received a lot of positive feedback, so thank you for doing that. And I'll be attending. JJ, when did I say I was going to be there?
7th.
The 7th of
February.
That's a Wednesday.
That's your mayor's breakfast.
That's right. When I said I was coming to chamber, though.
Oh, 30th.
The 30th of January. Oh, I did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Should probably write that down.
You should.
January 30th, I'll be at the business chamber for lunch over at the Oak Tree, and then who's heading up the WQCC out there right now? Anybody?
You are.
I am.
We're not doing dinners anymore.
Okay, you're not?
Just show up.
Just show up. Okay. I'll offer up the council chambers if that's something that everyone's interested in. Okay. So we can just let us know, and I don't know who's running the show right now with that. Anybody?
Of course.
All right.
Okay.
Got it. I'll offer up the council chambers. If you want that, please email Mr. Boyce and we can get it arranged. All right. Questions for Mr. Boyce?
So, to be clear, the city is not participating officially in the WQCC event. Is that, or just certain members of council? How is that working?
Well, the WQCC revived, I guess it was 2 months ago, November. I did attend that meeting. It was really what happened was a round table. Everyone at the table talked about what's happening within their organization. I understand there may be a presentation at the next one.
Yes, please. Can you step forward? Thank you, Ms. King. Sorry to put you on the spot.
It's okay.
So the commission has asked for to bring back the WQCC, given the infrastructure feasibility study and all the different things that could mean for all the jurisdictions, as well as for the next one, they would like to have Paul Yeomans come down, who runs Pathways 2020. We are a member of Pathways 2020 of the original MOU. The city we cannot find was a part of it, and the school district wasn't a part of it. But
was not, sorry.
I'm sorry?
Both were a part of it? Okay.
Both the city and the school district were not. You were one of the few that were not part of the MOU that came, and it was developed under the Council of Governments to deal with the Meth Action Committee and Substance Abuse Council, and there was multiple different things that they had to deal with. In recent months, the Port of Longview, the City of Longview, and what we've heard is Cowlitz County have pulled out of Pathways 2020. So there is also a group called the 40 for 2020. I believe Councilmember Humbert is a part of that, that is gearing up, and with funding through the Cowlitz Economic Development Council, they have a partnership with the Forest Service and a position under that person who's going to be gearing up that 40 for 2020.
Okay.
It's more positive. There's been a lot of situations with Pathways 2020 with a report card. And so what we're hearing from all these members is that they're pulling funding. For us, we're the only representatives of Woodland on it, and so we wanted to get feedback from the rest of the community where Woodland stands on Pathways 2020.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you, Ms. King. And I think I'll go ahead and venture to say that we took our break. Everyone kind of took a step back from the table, and we're all regrouping. So WQCC, I believe, is an administrative group, and nothing action was taken from council. It was something that was just done. So by offering up this council chambers, I would like to step back up into to the table with the city and participate again. So we'll start there, if that works out for everybody. Not that you have a choice right now since it's administrative. So I encourage everyone to attend and listen to the presentation. February 7th, 6 p.m. Yeah. All right. As soon as I get done speaking, now's your chance.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chair will accept a motion to approve the consent items. Councilmember Graham.
May we pull item I?
For discussion?
Discussion, please.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is a motion on the floor to approve items A through H with the exception of I for consideration, or for discussion, sorry.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Graham, seconded by Councilmember Humbert. Will the clerk please take the vote?
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza?
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert?
Aye.
All right, moving on to consent item I, authorize mayor to sign MOU with Northwest Steelheaders related to Gorig Park.
Motion to approve action item I.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Humbert. Councilmember Fredericks.
I have no discussion at this point.
Councilmember Humbert.
I have no discussion at this point.
Further discussion.
I'm on. Okay. Well, I found this reading materials, and I came across the words Gorig Park. I've lived in Woodland for a long time. Pretty much know the parks. Didn't know where it was at. It was kind of intriguing and searching a map and finding that it's across the other end of the bridge. So then questions arose. Is it inside the city limits?
No.
I found out differently.
Oh, okay.
Well,
I was told no.
Well, there was just a lot of questions that come up to me about it.
Would you like Ms. Coleman to talk about the park and how we acquired it?
Yes, she's
Okay.
been very informative. I spoke with her and presented her my questions that I had about this whole thing.
Okay.
And I found it very informative. There was a lot of things that I did not know that went to this piece of property.
Okay.
And now with her explanation to me, answering my questions, I feel better about the whole issue.
Okay.
So, and I think it's good for everybody to know
Okay.
what information she found out today.
Okay. Ms. Coleman, you're on.
Okay. So, and thank you, Janice, for giving me the opportunity to answer your questions. I think that's
Well, thanks.
pertinent. I think it's pertinent
Thanks
for
for
when
answering.
we present something that everybody understands what we're presenting. So, with that being said, the name Gorig, where that came from, was back in November 17th of 1924. George and Ella Gorig granted us that property there at the park. The park itself has been in our Woodland Park and Recreation Plan since before 1996, but sometime from 1924 to 1996, it was referred to as Bozarth Park as well. So if you look in our Woodland Park and Recreation Plan, you'll see it as Gorig Park and Bozarth Park. And then as recent as 2007, in the part of the Woodland Park and Rec Plan, we've referred to it again as Gorig Park from there on out. So it's all been, it's a park, it's outside the city limits, it's not in the urban growth boundary, which I thought it was previously, but it is not. It is in Clark County, and it's a separate piece of property that we do own since 1924. Do you want me to go further and kind of in regards to the Department of Fish and Wildlife and go through that a little bit, Janice?
Well, I found it interesting if anybody else does, because this was just a piece of
Go ahead,
I'll share. I'm a
It
share.
is.
I'll be a share. So one of the questions that Janice asked was, it was considered a walk-in only park. So one of the questions was, if it's access to the waterway, what are we talking about as far as motorized boats, etc. And so I did some research with the Department of Fish and Wildlife and found out that walk-in only only addresses the land access of the park, meaning that you can drive a car there, but you can't drive a car all the way to the water. It has nothing to do with the waterfront itself. And then I said, well, what do we have going on with the Department of Fish and Wildlife and with environmental? What do we have going on as far as access to the river itself? And the access to the river is allowed for anything as far as drift boats, kayaks, canoes, inner tubes, anything that somebody can carry and take to the water, because we don't have a boat ramp. So you wouldn't be able to back a speedboat up there and put it on the ramp because there's no ramp. Then I did a little more research and found that in 2008, we actually did a boat launch feasibility study for the city of Woodland itself. And Gorig Park was in that feasibility study to see what would it take to put a ramp in Gorig Park. And part of that study said that it would cost, at that time in 2008, about $580,000 to put a boat ramp in there with all the permitting that was required for environmental. Obviously that wasn't feasible for the city to do, so we left it as a park that was just open to anybody who wanted to access anything they could carry down to the river and not go that boat ramp access. Plus parking is limited there as well. So after I did a little bit of research, I wanted to address that environmental concern that there's no ramp, so we don't have to worry about that. Walk-in was just meaning that you can walk to there, you park your car, you walk down to the ramp itself. And then another question that I thought was a great question was the insurance. What's that do to us as a city as far as our liability insurance-wise to anybody using the park since it's outside the city limits? And so Peter has better information on that because I'm not an expert in that, so I'd like to ask Peter to address that.
Well, the liability is covered the way any other park in the city is covered, so that the liability part isn't a concern. We'd need a list of individuals who are volunteering to make sure if there's an accident while they're volunteering. And we do that with other volunteers in town too, so it's not out of the ordinary and shouldn't have any effect on the insurance premium.
And I think one of the items that Peter brought up, it was the same concept as Make a Difference Day, where we have volunteers come in and help clean up throughout the city. It's the same concept. Only in this one we'd have regular volunteers within the Association of Northwest Steelheaders. One of the other items that we brought up that wasn't transferred onto the document for the MOU, and I apologize for that, it was the hours of operation, and I worked with the police department and our public works department and brought them all together with the Association of Northwest Steelheaders to find out what works well for all of us involved, since we're all going to be involved in this together. And we all came up with a time frame from March 1st through October 31st. We would have the park open from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then from November 1st, winter hours, to February 28th, we'd have it open from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. There's a couple reasons why we chose this, because first of all, we're trying to make sure that we can police the park and make sure that we don't have unwanted activity at the park. So we would have it open during the daylight hours, but close it off at night, so we wouldn't have, we had in 2013, we actually closed the park as a city due to continued vandalism, abandoned cars. We also had heavy pedestrian traffic and homeless camps that were in there, so we actually have closed the park off. We have not opened it. We did not have and still do not have the manpower with the cut in our parks department this next year, which we've cut out of our budget, to add another park to maintain. So we thought this would be a good idea to partner with the Northwest Steelheaders kayak group and ourselves that they could donate the funds for the gravel, and they could do all the maintenance on the park as far as all the cleanup goes, and all we would do is go and pick up the garbage. They donate the cans, they donate lights. We may have to pay the light bill, which would be, you know, $8 to $20 a month. But that's all we're paying. They're actually getting all the capital project dollars in there, all the capital gravel, anything that we would need, the garbage cans, they would donate for us. They would donate all the labor hours to keep the park clean, so we don't have our park crew maintaining this through this MOU. There would be no additional hours with the hours that we identified to have staff go and open and close it, no overtime hour call-outs. We worked with the police department to come up with that, and they said that they would go out and be able to close that. We'd have dual locks on it for the fire department and the police department to be able to access it. We also have talked with the fire department and making sure that we had a space available for them to go down and access the park to be able to have turnaround for their engine or first aid vehicle if we had any incident down there, so we'd have access for the fire department and police. We've also talked about defining specific parking areas at the park itself, so we always would have a parking area for police and fire, and then we'd have additional parking areas for the public. But by closing it off, then we could police the park and not have unwanted people there after hours, since it would be posted hours at the park itself. And I think that covers most of the questions that you had, Dennis. And again, I apologize for not including all this information in it ahead of time. And I think they're great questions.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it just kind of blew me away a little bit, and then when we did a little bit of research, and then like, oh my gosh, you know. But I want to thank Tracy for jumped right on this and got all the information and answered a lot of the questions, and I hope it all works out very well, because it makes a lot of sense now.
I think it's a good way to bring the community into Woodland. It's fisherman's paradise and kayakers, and we don't offer that over at Horseshoe Lake. And you know, also I think it's called the River Rats come through, and they've also said that they would volunteer at least once a year any capital dollars that we would need and labor to go in and improve our park in one fell swoop. So if we have a major cleanup every year, they would do that as well with the Northwest Steelheaders.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Further discussion?
I have a question.
Mr. Plaza.
Tracy, real quick. You had mentioned that that there was a lot of homeless people camping out over there at one point. And I know back in 2017, the police department did a sweep through there and contacted a lot of homeless people that were mucking up the area. Have they been removed, do you know? And what enforcement action can we take after the park's open to ensure that they're not coming? I mean, we can have a gate, that's great, yes, but that's not going to keep people from hopping over and setting up camp. And I do remember back then we had a lot of car prowls when people used to use the park.
Right.
And so, yeah, what steps are being taken, if any, to guarantee that doesn't happen after it's reopened?
Right, and that was one of the reasons why we came up with a time for the park to be open and closed, so we could actually police the park. So the gate will be closed at dark, so it's kind of like dusk to dawn. So during the daylight hours it's open, and then we lock it up at night. And so if we post the hours at the park, then it can be policed. And we can say, hey, you're violating the park hours, it's closed from 6 o'clock at night on, so we can actually go in and remove people from there at that time.
So you're going to authorize the police department to arrest people for trespassing at that point?
Absolutely, yes, sir. On our property, since it is city property, that's correct. And it will be posted hours of operation. Yes.
Councilmember Browns?
I think the lighting will help too in that respect if you get lighting over there.
Yes, it will. The biggest challenge is the drop from, if you're familiar, when you go over the bridge, there's a large drop-off. And so the biggest challenge we found is getting the power down to that drop-off for the height difference. But we will work with Pallets PUD, and they'll provide like I said, the capital dollars for a pole, the electrical, and then we would be in charge of maintaining the light bill every month, so we would have to pay that. It's been between $8 to $20 a month is what we're anticipating. I'm hoping to have 2 lights down there at the park, but at a minimum 1 that would be right underneath the bridge area, at a minimum.
All right, will the clerk please take the vote on consent item I, authorize mayor to sign MOU with Northwest Steelheaders related to Goreg Park.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
All right, consent item I has passed. If we can take a 5-minute break, it's 8:16. I need you to take your seats.
I got it, Jimmy's picking on me.
Before we move to action items, I failed to mention earlier when everyone was here, and I apologize profusely, but thank you to Mrs. Rip and her team for setting up the cake and everything this evening. I got nervous when I got up there. I even have it at the very top of my list to say thank you, and I didn't do it. So I apologize. Thank you for taking care of all the arrangements this evening. We truly appreciate it. Dang it.
You're welcome. I will share that with my staff.
Please do. I even wrote it down so I wouldn't forget because I get nervous. Dang it. Worst mayor ever. Yes, all right, moving on to action items. But no, seriously, thank you. So enjoy some cake before you walk out the door this evening as well. There's still some out there. Action item J, authorize agreement with Frank F. Randolph, Walstead, Mershing for city attorney services.
Move to approve the agreement with Frank F. Randolph, Walstead, Mershing for city attorney services.
Second. Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Plaza. Councilmember Fredericks.
We discussed this at the Finance Committee. We have referred it to this body with the new task recommendation. I too would like to say thank you to Mr. Ewing for his years of service to the city of Woodland. And we pass this.
Mr. Plaza. No comment. Further discussion. Will the clerk please take the vote?
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
All right, action item J has passed. Moving on to action item K, ordinance number 1404, extension of medical marijuana cooperative moratorium authorized by ordinance number 1393, first and final reading.
Move to adopt ordinance number 1404.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Humbert. Councilmember Fredericks.
I see this is on the unfinished business list for the planning workshop to work in 2018, and I believe this moratorium makes sense.
Councilmember Humbert.
I agree with Councilmember Fredericks. I think that we just need to have a little more information and do a little more work on this before we okay it.
Further discussion? All right, will the clerk please take the vote on action item K, ordinance number 1404.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
All right, action item K has passed. Moving on to action item L, adopt 2018 legislative priorities.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Humbert, seconded by Councilmember Rounds. Councilmember Humbert.
I think that this is what we've been working towards, and we just need to keep moving on these, keep working on them.
Councilmember Rounds.
Agreed.
Further discussion?
I appreciate number 6 being added.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Boyce, for that comment should be directed towards Mr. Boyce. Yeah. Anything further? All right, will the clerk please take the vote on action item L, 2018 legislative priorities.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert.
Aye.
All right, action item L has passed. The time is 8:26. We're moving into a workshop now. Planning Commission work plan for 2018. As you can see by the list, after our meeting last Monday, we have the old list of items unfinished business that the Planning Commission is currently working on or needs to work on. or has suggested to work on. And moving on to item B of that, or new items to possibly consider, and these were a lot of items that were discussed during the workshop last Monday. So at this time, I told you, I told you last Monday I'd be bringing you forward a list, and what I would like to see come out of the workshop is a list of items to send over out of both A and B to send over to Planning Commission to begin working on, and the rest would be holdover for the retreat in February to discuss. So I'll open up the floor. I think it might be easier to say, what would you like to see at the February 10th retreat? Might be the easiest to go. We'll open that up for discussion.
What we're going to talk about, or what you want sent to the...
Well, during the Monday meeting, this past Monday meeting, the workshop, there was a suggestion that anything, taking the items and passing them down to the Planning Commission, but those that may have further discussion with council before passing it over to Planning Commission would be held over till the retreat, and there would be discussion there of whether or not to move it forward to the Planning Commission.
Got it. Okay.
So this is a long list, and I guess it's up to council, however you want to go through it. There's quite a few on here that might be easy ones for them to get started on right now.
So do we want to pick the ones that we want them to start on right now? Is that what you want?
Yeah, we can do that. Let's do that. That might be
Okay, so
easier.
we're doing the ones
Yeah.
that we want to start on. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So...
Planning Commission rules.
Yes, that's the top one.
Let's see. Okay.
I do believe isn't that on their next agenda?
Mr. Goddard. So it's already there. We can scratch it then.
Well, assuming they get it done in one meeting.
Okay.
Might be a stretch.
Well, and the anticipation is that once these items go back to Planning Commission, Mr. Goddard is going to bring back a timeline of when council can expect them to come back across the DS. Mr. Fredericks.
The Planning Commission rules should be boilerplated from somewhere else. It's not like we have to reinvent the wheel here. I think the concern is that from, if I'm not reading too much in it, the rules that we're talking about now give a lot of power to the chair. And the chair power should be really turned over to the majority of the commission, it would seem to me. But those rules have already been created. I'm not sure why it would take more than an hour. Well, yeah, okay, it could take longer. And that's okay, it's just, my hope is that it gets done now.
Doesn't seem to be that difficult.
Mr. Plaza.
I got an email, or I read somewhere, of the Planning Commission rules that they've got out there right now, or a draft of the new one. Do you know, is that the standing one? I know you don't know which exactly I looked at, but is the one that, well, let me rephrase that. Somebody needs to clean that up, because the language in it is really awful. And it's written in a way that if any of the citizens got hold of it, and with some of the instructions that are given to Planning Commission members on how to address the public, I mean, it's not very polite. And I'm not trying to be PC or anything, because I'm the last person on the planet that is like that. But there's, good grammar, and then there's, again, lack of better words, being a jerk, in directions. So if you can get the Planning Commission to maybe review either the draft they're working on or the one that's currently in place, because, yeah, it's not good.
Mr. Fredericks?
If I could just expand on that, and part of that is the effective running of that meeting, and making sure that once the rules are adopted, that somebody holds them accountable to following what they've passed on their own, and that's typically left up to the chair. But there seems, I think that there may be a challenge there that needs to be looked at, just to make sure that those meetings are running effective. One of the terms I will say that I did not like is we had a recent meeting where the chair was telling people what she didn't want them to say. Coming up to the lectern, if somebody has already said it, please don't repeat it. If you have a bunch of people who are in attendance and they all feel the same way, then that's how you that's how you hear what the folks are saying. So just little things like that. It just seems to me that the Planning Commission rules should be something that is done in one meeting, and maybe you take them out once a year or after you have a new member join.
So the second item on the agenda, or the other item on the agenda for this Thursday, is the city's hearings examiner is Joe Turner. I have known Joe for 20 years, and he's probably one of the most efficient and adept at running a good meeting. And he will be coming to do a dry run of his presentation to help the Planning Commission understand kind of how to develop a pattern so that you can draw out comments and avoid repetitive testimony, especially given the time limits that are in the rules, so that if you only have 3 minutes or 4 minutes or 5 minutes, if you agree with the person before you, you don't need to say it again. How to simply say, I agree with that testimony and I wanted to add, and make more effective testimony. Also, Clark County has a handout that's specifically designed to help citizens be more effective when you're at the mic and you only have 3 minutes, how to be more effective. So we will incorporate that into the presentation so that they understand how to better manage that. And so this is going to be kind of a 1-2 punch of helping them understand how other people do it professionally. Also, since Joe is an attorney, they'll be able to maybe ask him some of the simpler, of course he won't be giving them advice, but legally, how can you do this, how can you do that? He'll talk about his techniques to manage crowds and to keep to specific timelines and to keep to the format that's approved by the rules. Then hopefully that'll give it a little more context for the conversations of the rules and, you know, what words to use and what words not to use in handling the crowd. So we should get to that pretty efficiently. And my suspicion is since they've had a couple conversations that we will agree upon some rules, maybe I'll revisit with them in 6 or 7 months and make sure that the second half of the year is even more constructive than the first half. So that's the plan for this Thursday.
I feel comfortable striking it off of the list. I just want to make sure that it's something that gets done, and I feel good that it's item number 1 that's on the list for the next meeting. I feel good that it's something to get done soon.
Okay.
I reserve the right to change my mind.
Okay.
Later on.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Why don't we
see the sign code?
The sign, yes.
Okay. Mr. Plot. Oh, I thought you raised your hand. Sorry.
No.
Okay. Ms. Humber.
The code changes to implement the comprehensive plan. Look at those.
Okay. You're ready for them to start that now? Okay. Okay.
And that's specifically Chapter 17. The language that's from 1982, that'd be good to update.
What about cleanup code overall? What is that? What do they need to do there?
Mr. Goddard? The under Section B, it just says cleanup code overall.
Do you need me at the mic for this, or can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
So my personal opinion is code really kind of, when it comes to land use, code really falls into kind of 3 categories. There's process, use, and development standards. And just reading in our notice issue that we experienced with the zone change in the comprehensive plan that was supposed to come before you tonight, I went back and I wanted to make sure that the notices that we were sending met the code, but there's notice information in the hearings examiner section, in the planning commission section, in the actual zoning section, and also in the administrative section. So that's a great example of if we send out notice and there is a very wise and attention to detail citizen whose chances are they can find something in the code that wasn't seen by staff that is applicable in any given case and causing, numerous delays, just by going through that. So that cleanup stuff is just kind of, might be crossing out this section because it's already somewhere else. So that's the kind of cleanup stuff.
Is that something more that would be coming from the executive staff versus them bringing it forward? Like you would be bringing that to them on a pretty regular basis, it sounds
Yes.
like,
Yes.
as you come across it.
Yeah, so that's just kind of retooling conversations.
Okay.
Another good example would be, currently the approval authority for a lot of applications lies with the Public Works Director. And that's a function of the fact that there wasn't a planning department or a community development department. When you created that, the authority still lies with the other department.
Authority.
So that's cleanup stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
You'd had no idea, did you? She's going to be at home doing some late night reading. So, in your opinion, then, is that something that should be taken off the list, just knowing that it's coming forward as you find it?
Yes. So it'll be an ongoing effort by me.
Okay.
And it has to go through them. So I'm not sure they need to spend a lot of time worrying about that.
Okay. Without objection, I'd like to strike that. I don't know, can I say that during a workshop? Is that okay? Okay. Sounds good. Okay. Who brought that one up? Oh, Ms. Humbert.
I did.
Oh, you did?
I
Oh,
think
okay.
I brought it up.
Okay.
Are we going to do it on this list?
Yeah, I was just going to say, maybe it would be easier if we just go back and just start at the top here. Retail marijuana.
So I think retail and marijuana probably should be workshopped. When my vision of a retreat, it should be high level. So I don't think we should be dealing with that at a retreat. I think it should be something that is dealt with in a workshop to discuss what this council feels as the next steps we should be taking on both of these.
Are you suggesting items 1 and 2 be put into that workshop?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. All right. Number 3 has already been circled. And let's see, flag lots. We did have a citizen come to a council meeting asking that council send this down to the Planning Commission. This seems like a pretty easy one that... Okay.
We think it's easy, is it?
We think it's easy. Sounds easy.
I'm not sure what it is, so...
Okay.
Okay. Well, I would suggest sending it down. I don't know that it's... I don't believe our code states that we can legally have a flag lot. So that's what the citizen had come and said, hey, I've got property I'd like to build.
What the citizen that came here, what he indicated, at least to the council, I felt was pretty common sense. But what am I not thinking of that I should be?
Mr. Jackson has made comments during one of the meetings that said we need to make sure we can get apparatus back there or a way to get water in case there's a structure fire, my understanding.
Access does become an issue for us. I know one of the ways Ridgefield dealt with that is requiring residential sprinklers if there was less than the typical access that you would have, specifically on flag lots. So there was options that allowed people to do that with a small investment to help mitigate the issue, and we found that to be successful so far. So.
Okay. I have sign codes circled. That's something that's been on the list for a long time. Okay. Commercial zoning code. I have no idea what the specifics are on that.
I don't remember this either, but if it talks about addressing the conflict in the C1 zone that was raised here this evening, and maybe that's on this list, the downtown
revitalization.
Maybe that's the same thing. Addressing the conflict, reasonable parking accommodations. We've had a lot of, in the years we've had a lot, but it seems like nothing ever really gets done. So that'd be good to see. I'm not sure. I don't recall what this was. Yesterday.
I have no idea.
It had to do with downtown Woodland revitalization and things that they were trying to do. So yes.
Okay. Are you folks ready to send that over to them, or do you want to discuss that further?
I think they need to look at it and send it back to us.
Okay. All right. Short-term rentals, I believe this is addressing Airbnbs type situations.
Is that an issue or something that's going to be an issue for us?
Well, right now, I believe that it's happening, if I can remember right.
I believe it is,
It's
too.
happening, but the city has no control over it, and we're not seeing the benefits of allowing it, I guess. I mean, as you would a hotel. Is that what Mr. Goddard, am I on the right track?
That's commonly what a lot of are worried about.
Okay. Mrs. Ripp?
I don't know what kind of zoning we have on that, but I did check with the state. I looked at some of the revenue that there are some that are reporting in Woodland, and I think what I found was there was only 2 or 3
Okay.
paying the tax.
But there's a way to capture.
But there's more that's doing it than 2.
Do they have business license?
A couple of them.
A couple of them do. Okay. Maybe some cleanup code on what expectations are, I guess. Okay. Accessory dwelling units, ADUs. This was talked about at the workshop on Monday.
Can you
Accessory
explain what that is?
dwellings.
I don't remember what that is.
Mr. Goddard, ADUs.
Helen was talking about the missing middle kind of ideas of looking at our tools for cottage, small homes, tiny homes.
Okay.
Seeing if there's any hurdles to it that are preventing people from trying it out.
Okay.
Is that, I think that's already addressed in our PERD ordinance, isn't it?
Yes, and he did point that out. I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but my impression is that there might have been some minimum lot sizes that just made it impractical, is that nobody had enough space to try it, because once you get to a certain size, you just do single-family residential or multifamily. There's no incentive for you to try and create something creative when you just do single-family residential.
Well, 8 accessory dwelling units, how is that different from on the next page, which is housing missing the middle of single family and high density?
It's not really the same.
Okay, got it.
Is that something that council wants them to work on, or would you like to discuss that further at a later date?
I'd like to see there to be some language in there for the cottage-style homes that, I wouldn't say language, I just want to make sure that it's an option and it's a viable option, because done well, those are really nice and provide a, what I think is, what a lot of people think maybe is a better use of the land associated with, because we're coming to an age where folks don't want to take care of a yard and there's common areas. I don't know, I just think we should make that something that is a viable option, and if it doesn't work right in our code, we should look for ways to improve that allowable use.
Agreed.
Okay. Circle that one as well. All right, moving on to the new items. This one here I'm very fond of, wireless facilities, small cell technology. I personally am fond of that, not that I get a choice to send something down to the Planning Commission, but I see it as a source of revenue for the city.
Pardon?
Mr. Goddard, you can explain the small cell technology. It's for capacity and not range.
Sure. So they tend to have a transmittal of maybe 100 feet.
Oh, I know, I remember.
Okay. I think it has the potential to be a revenue generating
I think so.
system for the city. And I would like to see that and open my arms to the cell companies to come in and Mr. Fredericks.
On the other side of that coin, I'd like to understand any potential public health risks associated with that type of technology, because I'm not familiar with any, but I'd like to know if there's any studies out there that have looked at that over a long...
There is actually a federal preemption that says that we cannot regulate or make decisions based upon health concerns.
Okay.
But my experience and what I have learned is that it is really, really hard to get to levels of concern. And I'd heard a number that said you have to be within 8 feet for something like 10 consecutive minutes of a transmitting signal to reach levels where it causes health concerns. So you literally have to be on a pole standing in front of it for a long amount of time before you get levels of concern. So.
Okay.
Is that something that council would like to discuss further? Ben?
I'd like to have more information.
Okay.
Well, if someone walks in today, if XYZ cell phone company comes in today, what would we tell them today?
I would have to check the code for sure, but they would tell me that I'm not allowed to ask them about health concerns and privacy.
Right. What would we tell them today as far as the ability?
If they wanted to put one
if they
in,
wanted
is
to
that what
put
you're
one in,
saying?
yeah, that's exactly what I'm.
I don't know the code well enough to answer that question yet.
They would probably know before they came in.
Yes.
But okay.
There was in the new some information.
City
Vision.
Oh, City Vision
magazine that came out from AWC this week, addressing those issues.
Mrs. Rep.
Putting the feelers out.
Yeah, I think it should be something that is. I think.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're going to be not in a good position.
Okay. Autonomous vehicles.
In regard to what?
Into regards to Mr. Goddard, I didn't realize that. Can the city ban autonomous vehicles from the city?
It's more of a discussion about are we prepared and are we asking the right questions. In case you missed it, there was an announcement today on NPR where they were talking about GM has committed to create a mass production line for autonomous vehicles. And they expect it to be operating by 2021.
Oh, this is the conversation you had about parking lots. Where are they going to park, and do we want them eating up our space and creating parking lots inside the city?
That's the part that I think is.
That's the part that bothers me.
Otherwise, you could end up having the city of Woodland, also known as the parking lot city, because of our location on I-5.
Yeah.
I think it's something that we should proactively look at, so we don't
turn into a parking lot.
Parking lot.
Yeah.
It also goes hand in hand with the small cells because that's how they'll be communicating with each other and locating themselves on the road for transportation.
Look at
that.
that.
System never goes out.
So without objection, I would like to add that one to the list as well. Connected vehicles. Are these the ones that you plug in at like the grocery store or?
Autonomous vehicles are completely driverless. Connected vehicles are vehicles that are traditionally driven by drivers, but when they get close enough to each other, they start to talk to each other, and they can form groups and pods that will travel. So you could be, a foot or two away from each other at 100 miles an hour, as opposed to.
I watched that, and it's very
possibly go wrong.
Is that something that the city of Woodland needs to be concerned about?
No, it's really kind of part of number 2. But
Okay. So we can strike that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, good.
I'm starting to get really concerned right now. I feel like I just entered into an episode of The Jetsons. Okay.
T100 discussion
Yes.
in a second.
Okay, we've already talked about code changes to implement the comprehensive plan, specifically Chapter 17. Downtown Woodland revitalization, and I think that was part of the commercial zoning code on the front page, so we'll strike that one off. Park and bike trail codes, park master plan. When we talk about a park master, do we already have a park master plan?
Yes.
Okay. Does it include park and bike trails?
It has some on there, but not all.
Okay. Mr. Goddard, what would the codes pertain to when we talk about park and bike trail codes? Is this forcing, or not forcing, I'm sorry, writing into new housing developments to allow for biking and park and bike trails?
It might be cross circulation, if you have long blocks, having pedestrian pathways between them.
Okay.
Or connecting between neighborhoods in paths is one option. Or another part of the discussion is our design standards. Are our streets, are our street designs considering the possibility of on-street parking or on-street bikes or off-street bike paths and separation between sidewalks and curbs? Those are the kind of discussions I think this might get into.
This was Commissioner Jones's idea, and it
Okay.
sounded good when
Yes.
she said it, and then I don't recall what it was, because it's been longer than a week.
And I agree with Mr. Fredericks on that. It sounded great. I was excited
And
about
I
it when
can't
she
remember
brought it
what,
up.
I can't remember what it was that she said, so I don't know if maybe she can expand on that, but it sounded like something that probably should be addressed.
But it would also address our go hand in hand with our park master plan as well. So we may have to do some updating to that along with, okay. So it sounds like we are sending that down to the planning commission for discussion, or we want, okay. Does that, Ms. Humber, does that also fit in with the Cowlitz County connecting?
That's what I was going to bring up.
Yes, it should, and I believe either David Boers or someone from Cowlitz on the Move wants to come speak to
Okay.
the council.
Okay.
And they were going to get a hold of you instead of a time.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Multifamily code, comprehensive plan consistency.
I forget what that was about.
What's that about?
Was this Commissioner Jensen's? He brought something up about multifamily. Yeah, let me look down, hold on. Oh, no. That was not. No, we can come back to that one. Clean up the code's already been struck out there. Fee analysis, June target to council for consideration, international building code review.
Isn't that two separate, oh, it's the same.
I think those ones go hand in hand, don't they, Mr. Goddard?
Yes.
The fees are up to date with IVC.
Ms. Rip, how does that go in?
Well, there's more fees beyond the IBC.
Okay.
We're looking at a complete fee analysis.
Does that analysis take into consideration this?
It can.
I just want to make sure there's not a duplication of efforts. If
Yeah.
we're already working, I know the finance
Well,
committee is already working on
We'll
that.
be sending out the fee analysis to all the different departments, and then they'll be weighing in on their section.
So
it's all comprehensive.
and that's coming from your department. Is that correct?
It's originating with my department.
It's originating, you're going out to
And
get.
the finance committee.
Okay.
And that wouldn't be a planning commission issue.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, strike that. Okay, incremental development. I think that was suggested to grow smartly and slowly. Is that?
I don't know how you,
Only allow so much development in certain areas of the city?
I think that'd be problematic if you had, if I have a piece of property and I own it and it's zoned for what I want it to be.
Right, I agree with you.
Am I going to stop someone because, well, I just don't want that type of growth there? I think that, I'm not, are we looking at that wrong? Is that, I don't understand what incremental maybe.
I wasn't quite sure what was meant by that either.
Okay, I think we should
Strike that.
Strike it, yeah.
Housing missing middle of single family and high density.
We already talked about
I think that ties into the ADU discussion. that we
Okay.
talked about on the previous page.
Striking that. Inventory of what we already have. I think council, was that a council request? Okay, so we will take that off for, that's not really a planning commission issue, but we will make note that you want that. Consider a form-based code.
Considering that the state of Washington doesn't have any municipalities doing a form-based code, I don't think it's good that we go trailblazing here.
Okay.
I agree.
I will strike that one as well. New federal decisions regarding marijuana, which I believe is already covered in A1 and A2.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay. I'm striking that one as well. And it says other items / discussion.
I have two.
Yes, Mr. Fredericks.
We have had a lot of discussion regarding gun ranges, and I want to make sure that...
Oh, that wasn't on here.
No, it's not.
It should have been.
Since a lot of the language has already been adopted, I think it would make sense to remove it from the, this is my opinion, not maybe the group here, but remove it from the residential zone and have some discussion about expanding or allowing that use in commercial or industrial, and drawing up the language so it works if someone wanted to come in somewhere else in our city and do that, to have that be an allowable use. But I'm only one member, so I'm not sure the rest of the group wants to look at that.
I'm okay with that.
No, I think it needs to happen.
It would make a good business for somebody. Right.
People ask for that.
Okay.
To address that.
So something that addresses it in a way that is not so controversial, I think would be a good idea. And then I want to ask a question on this. To some extent, the City Council has given up control on a lot of the developments that come into Woodland. They have to go through a hearings examiner, and the hearings examiner only bases his decision based upon the code that he's interpreting. So if a business wanted to come, applies, but it isn't a permitted use, typically the hearings examiner is going to send them away. But what power do we have to say, you know what, that we want to allow that use? And how do we provide flexibility in the code that allows council to have a little bit of power to be able to say that's something that we're interested in hearing, rather than just saying no? How do we remove some of that power from the hearings examiner, put it back on the city's lap, and be able to say, that's something that we'd like to work with you on. Let's see if we can tweak it and make it work to where everyone's happy.
So I think we will get to that issue when we talk about code changes, especially with the commercial. Getting back to the idea of you have your process, you have your use, and you have your standards. Ultimately, it is a legislative decision as to what uses you want in a zone. Once you decide that legislatively, and if you want it to be a permitted use or a conditional use or a prohibited use. And so something like a gun range, for example, might be something that you declare as a conditional use. And then I go to the hearings examiner and have him help me understand what are the physical development concerns that you have. Are the construction standards adequate? Is there what's behind it, or what are the special concerns that concern you about that particular use? That's where the hearings examiner comes in, because he looks at height, width, setback, type of, what are the mitigation standards for traffic and noise, and those are the kind of things he looks at. But where they're allowed is strictly a legislative decision that you put into the zoning standard.
I guess my concern would be is that I don't want, if we're truly open for business, I don't want the first thing to be said is, no, you can't do that. And so that's what I'm trying to figure out. How do we tweak that to make that change to where that's not the message we're sending. Maybe sometimes it is the message we're sending. But that we look at the applicants, what they're trying to do, and say, does this work? Can we make it work? And so I'd be interested in that, but I don't know where that, if that's a planning commission thing, is that a retreat thing? Where do I bring that up at?
I think that's a good conversation that we need to have. Because ultimately, you're the legislative body that determines what's allowed in what zone. When it comes to process, that's my responsibility as the executive branch, and the judicial branch, theoretically, in this case, is the hearings examiner. He should only be along with that. So as long as we update the zoning and the code properly, you should be able to address that by virtue of legislative guidance by updating the zoning code.
Okay.
So
I would like to never hear no. Maybe it's going to be, well, we can't do it that way, but would this work for you? So that we give them some options. Because one of the things that I hear from companies that have come is it's just no. And that's, I don't want Woodland to have that if that's what we want to do. We need to be able to, so I don't know how that needs to happen. I agree.
I would be opposed if you wanted to put a garbage dump in a residential zone. I would be opposed to that. So I could see a time where we would be opposed to something.
Right.
But I want to make sure that the
But no,
overall
you
message.
can't put it here, but can you
Right.
move it out here?
We're framing the question as to help them find the location,
Yes.
as opposed to telling them no.
No.
And I'd like to understand the process then, if someone comes in and that's the message that they're given. How do we have that indeed? It's a cultural change of, we are open for business, but I also have this rule book, the playbook in front of me that I've got to interpret. And I don't, because there's so many codes and there's one section says one thing, another section says another, we could be setting people off on creating the code is this is the rule book, but when you have rules that are all over the place, developers don't want that. They want to understand what are the rules, great. And that's what I'm trying to get to, so where we truly do have that. We are open for business. However, we want to see if there's an opportunity here to make this project, is it viable?
Okay. Councilmember Rounds.
I asked Mr. Boyce if he would put impact fees on the agenda for our retreat also.
Okay. And it was brought up in the presentation tonight as well.
Can I expand on that?
Can I go back just one real quick? Because I'm hearing what you're saying. And Mr. Goddard, am I under the impression that you are the referee to the playbook? So if somebody came in and it doesn't fit, and you say, okay, well, this is what we need to do, and I need to take this over, you need to go to council meeting and ask them to help me out here, or whatever. Okay.
And back to the presentation that we had last week, part of it is that first block is the pre-application conference, helping them understand, okay, if you make this decision, you have a problem. If you make this decision, that problem goes away. If you find this property, it becomes a green light as opposed to a yellow light or a red light. Yeah, that's part of the process that I'm responsible for helping them navigate through the legislative ground rules before they start answering the physical design questions and spend their money.
Right. I guess it's creating a code that truly says we're open for business is what I'm after.
Okay.
And how do we...
Form-based.
Oh, here we're back to form-based. So...
Please sit down, Mr. Fredericks.
Okay.
I think that...
Are you ready to blaze that trail?
No.
Okay.
I think that when we say we're open for business, we're here to work with you and make it fit.
Right.
I think that when we say we're open for it, we can't have a free-for-all. But what we can do when you say talk about a culture of change,
yeah.
We are here, we're here to help. We're with the government, we're here to help. But I think that's what it comes down to, is having staff that's willing to sit down and work and say, this is your direction and where you can go. Okay? Sorry, Mr. Perry.
And to expand
yes.
on Councilmember Rounds' request to add impact fees.
Yes.
I want to make sure that can be taken as, we just want information on impact fees. I'd like to have some understanding of what legally we're allowed to do with impact fees as far as fee holidays, a reduction in the fees if we're trying to promote something, if we're trying to promote residential, if we're trying to promote job growth. What avenues does the council have available to it to legally be able to have some sort of fee holiday, and just make sure that we understand that from a legal standpoint of what we have ability to do.
Well, and I'd also like to understand what the impact is going to be to our bottom
that's
line.
The second,
that's my number one.
The second part of that is to understand, okay, what is the impact if we do that? So I'm interested in having a discussion about impact fees in their entirety.
Councilmember Rounds.
Well, I just wanted to expand on that. I want to see what it would be in the long term if we didn't have impact fees. If we're going to come out ahead, if we're not charging impact fees, if we're getting the business in here and getting the revenue and getting the taxes, what the benefit outweighs the impact fees.
Okay.
That's what I'm after.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Boyce.
And that may be the hard number to provide, because you're going to have to make assumptions and predictions about what businesses might be attracted and what their impact on the community would be. So that would be a challenge, but I agree with you. We need to talk about it, because that's the upside of making it easier.
Business friendly.
Right.
Okay. All right. Anyone else that have items that they would like to add? Mr. Chapman.
Oh, it goes on, Mr. Goddard, with the gun range and stuff. Here last summer, we had quite a few. Mr. Perry said here kind of about it. On Horseshoe Lake, we had quite a deal with docks. And there's anything in codes and stuff like that. I don't know. They should look at it, but make sure our dock situation, I know Mr. Perry worked on it quite
fall
hard.
under the shoreline rules.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
The commissioner, they find into that, I don't know, but, yeah, I know we were.
Lake committees talked about getting back to it.
Yeah, I know.
We kind of went to the milfoil issue and focused on it and forgot about docks for a while.
Yeah, I forgot, but I'll make sure we're kind of on top of it, because I hate for you guys to come to it, and all of a sudden we're like, well, we want to help you, but all of a sudden we do all this research and this, that.
I don't think that we have, okay.
Yeah, kind of look at.
Okay. Anything else? I'm going to read you a list real quick here. Well, I'm not going to read you a list right now. Well, maybe I will. This might be easier. So we go down the list. Items 1 and 2, scheduled for a workshop for council. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, sent over to Planning Commission. Under B, 1, 2, 4, 6, 6, and then we added gun range in commercial and industrial areas, which would be item 16, I believe, would be sent over to Planning Commission. And item 12, inventory of what we already have, will be brought back to council for discussion. Retreat item, impact fees, we got a lot of information on that, and to make sure the Lake Committee is still looking at docks.
Gun ranges?
I put gun ranges on there. Yeah, it's number 16.
I missed it.
No, it's okay. I think it's 16. Yeah, gun ranges in commercial and industrial zones. Anything else before we move out of workshop? All right, fine, Mr. Perry.
Well, as a past council member, I reflect on a couple of these. You asked about the multifamily. If you go back to the 2014 document that you had some time back, it kind of gives you a brief description of it. And the purpose behind it was so that we wouldn't end up with these low-income housing developments. By saying, no, we want garages, we want this, we want that, we want these other things, then you're making a multifamily unit that is really a quality unit.
I skipped over this number.
Because your code demands that it be that way. And this was actually suggested back then because of the low-income housing that we have. On the hearings examiner thing, I think that it got to be Bart Stepp, whenever he did any code, he never wanted, and he said this in the meeting, that he didn't want the political input. That's why everything went to the hearing examiner. So he basically just said, I don't want the city council to have a word.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Fredericks.
Out of respect for the other people here, if they would like to speak for 2 minutes,
Yes.
just to open up the floor to
All
anybody
right.
else who'd like to add their 2 cents.
Anyone else want to step up to the mic at this point for 2 minutes? No? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fredericks, for keeping me in line and fair. I did skip over under section B, and Mr. Perry just brought it up, number 7, multifamily code comprehensive plan consistency. We never addressed if we were striking that, keeping it, or saving it for discussion.
We said that kind of went in with the,
Yeah, with the other one.
the
ADU.
Yeah, the ADUs.
Okay.
ADU, yeah.
So that one's being, okay,
Right.
strike that one off?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. We good? All right. 9:13. Moving on to action item M, as in Mary, adopt 2018 work plan for Planning Commission. Staff and Planning Commission to report back at future date with list of prioritized and timeline. I will give you your list one more time. Under section A, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Under section B, 1, 2, 4, 6, and 16, which is addition, gun range in commercial and industrial areas.
Move to approve as amended.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Chapman. Councilmember Fredericks.
I'd look to Mr. Goddard as far as the prioritization of this. I'd like to see what your thoughts are as far as what you're there. You know what's going on. If there's something that you see that needs to be addressed, like, hey, this is kind of important, I would hope that you know where you should be sending us.
Mr. Chapman?
Yeah, like what Mr. Fredericks said, it's a work in progress, and we'll take the right steps forward. So I have Mr. Goddard on board, and Tracy and everybody else. I like what's going on right now. We're really starting to move forward and try to make, Woodland say, hey, yeah, like Ben said, we're open for business. We're not a no place, but we're willing to work with somebody.
I'd just like to correct you on that. I'm the one that said we're open for business. But go ahead, Mr. Chapman.
Sorry, it's not a new level.
Just clarification.
Okay.
Further discussion?
We're not the no city.
Yes. Further discussion? All right, will the clerk please take the vote on action item M, adopting 2018 work plan for the Planning Commission.
Councilmember Humbert?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza?
Aye.
All right, action item M has been adopted. Chair will accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor? Oh, second, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 9:15. All right, jumped. Yes. Yes. No, so the only time we want to bring up, the only time we don't go. There's issues, from my understanding at this point. Yes.